Hello there guys, and welcome back to our Audi R8 tutorial here. In between episodes, as promised, what I did was I just went through and just tidied up this all the best I could. Just a little bit of movement here and there just to make sure it's nice and smooth. I also just pulled these vertices a little bit. So I just grabbed these vertices here and I've just pulled them out so I can make a bit more space for the little fin here. And then I just narrowed that down so that it all fits on the outside. So if I remove the wireframe, we can see that that's looking a little bit nicer there. So in this episode, what we'll do is I think we'll move across the top here. I've got a bunch of reference images for this. We did start it obviously in the previous episode. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue with that. Jump in my top view. So we can see we started to run around here to the point where I think that's where it started to move up to the next position. And then in between that we have the kind of the gap in between on the hood. So what we're going to do is we're going to move to that gap next, which runs all around here, and then we're going to go for that interior section. So let's just do the same here. I'm going to grab all these edges. We're just going to continue at the point that we left off. I'm going to grab all these. I'm going to hit Control E, and I'm just going to pull on the green, and I'm just going to pull to intersect the gap between the panels there. And what I'll also do is I'm going to move in nice and close with my vertices here now, and I'm going to move these into a slightly better position so that they're hugging this line. I'll maybe just move to the one side of this like everything else. We'll just go to the closest side here. So let's move into our top view and let's take all of these over. Again, let's just try and keep these as smooth as possible. So I want nice straight lines here, or subtle curves. That's probably not subtle enough, so let's just do something like that. It's always important to keep things as straight or as nicely curved as possible, just to make sure that it's going to be looking good when we do smooth it. Because when we do smooth all the geometry, any little waves in weird areas, little kinks and things, won't be looking too good. So let's grab all of these. Now I don't know if this is in the right spot. We'll address that when we get to it. Obviously the roof's in the way here. But we'll address that at some point, so we'll move that over there. If we do have a look on this reference image here, we can see that it does keep going practically to where the kind of roof area starts within there. So we can see that we've got our 3 vents, then we've got our next one, a little bit of a gap, and then we're in. So if we look here, that it's probably a case that this actually finishes here. So what we'll maybe do at some point is we'll just add the required edge loops in and we'll delete these extra faces. So what we'll do is we'll just have it so that it's sitting in the right spot, and then we'll do what we need to do afterwards. So let's just move these up then, now that we're sitting nicely on this line, like that. And we do need to go up one more time afterwards. That's the wrong one. And again, we want to stay on one side of this. I'm probably going to stay on the lower side. So it's looking okay. I'm just going to run using both views here. One's looking okay. So, and then if we're getting on our perspective view a little bit here, again we'll use this last one to kind of bring that one in. I don't want this to be going down at this point, I don't think, so we'll bring these up the way a little bit so that they're coming off straight from there. And let's grab all those same edges again. I'm going to do one last extrusion again. I'm going to pull on the green, and we're going to go all the way to the next kind of vent point, and then let's just for now pull this up only a little bit, something like that, just so that we've got those lower portions raised. these up nice and high. Okay, something like that. So going all the way up now, we've got a nice smooth incline. Let's see in our rear view here. We can see that by default all of that's lining up really quite nicely for the most part. There's a little bit of differentiation here, but it's not looking too bad. We can see that's moved up there quite nice. We can see that down here though. We are sitting a little bit too low. So it looks like we do need to, actually no, I think that's part of this vent here that we can see going across there. Yeah, it's the start of that portion, so that's okay. Okay, so worked up there quite nice, and then what we've got is we've got this kind of double portion here. We also have to consider this area, because we are going to have to go along and create an extra additional line going across. We do have another vent in here as well, so this bit here is a little bit of a step up vent too. So this bit's going to be quite tricky as we move on here. So what we'll probably want to do is we're going to want to think about how we're going to mold this vent, and I think the best way to do that is probably by bringing these ones down here and these ones up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my transform here, constraint, I'm going to make that edge. And let's jump in our perspective here. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and bring this over to this corner. But we want to kind of try and maintain as much of that original shape as possible. So something like that looks quite nice. And then we'll take this one down here. And I've just got this view open just to make sure that my edges are flowing to the right spot. So let's take this down there. And I'm just going to kind of meet this in the middle with each of these. Something like that. That's not looking too bad. So we see we've still got that nice line flowing down there, which is good. And it just means we don't need to add more geometry because we really don't want any more lines coming and intersecting on this portion of the car here. The more lines we kind of have in this area, the worse our little our circle arch will look. So we've got this gap. So we've got to be careful here because this portion now, what we might actually do is this portion is actually a completely separate object. Let's just remove our edge slice here. And let's just move all the way up. So what it looks like is it looks like on my images here that this section in the middle is actually like either carbon fiber. Might be different on certain options for the car, but this is actually carbon fiber. So where this line actually is that runs around here, this actually changes, this whole portion here changes to the carbon fiber, and then we're back body colored in the center here. So this is a completely new section. We've also got to be careful with this is because when we're going across here, let's run across into this bit. We want to make sure that on our rear view, you can see that that's almost perfect. It's almost perfectly cut in there. And I do want to come down a little bit. Let me grab these vertices here and just pull those down a little bit, just so we're going across. This is the vent here, as we discussed. And then this bit here, we're going to hit Control E, and that bit comes down. So we're going to come down in this portion, just there. So do something like that. Okay. Like so. What we'll probably want in here, let's add, now we know that they're in the right spot, I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, and let's drop, not multiple, must have had that saved from before. I'm going to drop 2 edge loops, one about here and one about here. Before we move those, let's just bring these in this direction. And we just want these to kind of help that curve a little bit more. I'll call those something like that, which looks like it could be quite good. And then let's grab this edge. We'll hit Control E. I'm going to pull this all the way up here, just to maybe, so it does look like this is actually the end, so we'll pull it just to this point, move that along like so, and it looks like it probably sits around the same height as what we currently have. You can actually see in our view here, I was going to set it up something like that. And let's go for mesh tools. We'll insert some edge loops. I'm going to drop one down this bottom here. I'm going to drop one for this body crease, and then let's maybe just kind of match what we have across the way. So let's drop one here, here, and here, something like that. So we see we've got multiple ones inside there, but we kind of want to match what we have inside here. Before we do, that's not looking too smooth. Okay, so what I'm going to do for this is I'm actually going to, in my top view, I'm going to hold down V on my keyboard. I'm going to run across and snap to this vertices, and then I'm going to pull it back to align where it should. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure it's just the same height, realistically. And then that means I'm going to hold down V on the one next to it, and I'm going to drag that along. So we can see now that this is going to be the exact same height as this point here, which is kind of what we want it to be. We do want to check our rear view though, because once we've done that, we're going to want to pull that down so that's matching that same kind of angle. So I'm going to grab this next one, I'm going to hold down V, snap over here, and then we're going to pull it back, making use of all of our views here. I'm going to do the same, holding V, snap to the next one, and then using our rear view, I'm going to pull that down so it matches that incline, so we're matching what we have over here. I'm just going to do this for each one. So again, holding V, snap, bring that back, holding V, snap, and we'll bring that back and drop that down. And then here we can't really do it the same because we don't have a corresponding vertices over here, and I don't want to add one in just yet. So I'll have a look at that a little bit later. So we can see now that we've got a nice shape going across there. That's looking pretty much perfect for us. So let's go and do one last thing. I'm just going to grab all of these edges. So all of these inner edges here. We are going to want to add something in here. We haven't really done anything to that area, so we will add something at some point. I'm going to hit Control E on these, and on that green arrow, just going to pull in just a little bit, just to kind of give us that extra little step. And then once we've pulled in, we're looking not too bad across there. I'm going to hit the world option, and I'm going to pull these down because I'm going to want those to be nice and straight. Inside there. It does, however, look like at this rear portion, we're going to want to pull these back up. Look in there. Okay, so that's looking quite nice inside. Let's grab these parts here. I'm going to hit Control E. So all the ones above the borderline here. Actually, let's also think about the vent. So the vent we'll do the vent after. So let's actually work down here. I'm going to hit Control E down here. Let's take it all the way into the center. So I'm going to switch to my vertices. I'm going to hold down X on the keyboard to snap these into the middle. And obviously want to pull that down. We want to make sure in our review that we're still looking good in there, which we are. So that's fine. Let's go for some mesh tools. I'm going to insert one just maybe about here, just to help us with that corner. Like that. That should be fine for now. So let's grab, I'm just having a look, the best way to do this I think, because it is curved, let's grab all of these. Because even though the vent, it does look like we go a little bit more before the vent. So let's hit Control E on there. We'll pull in on that green. And that's already brought it down fairly decently for us. But I think what we'll do is let's grab the vertices here. I think we just want to go down on a little bit more. And especially on these bits, we don't want to be going up. We want these to be sitting roughly the same. Something like that. Okay. I'm going to go Control E again. Let's not go Control E, because what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to define this vent. So let's do that. Let's add an insert edge loop just at the top of where the vent would be, inside there. And let's grab all the elements above that vent. I'm going to hit Control E on these. I'm just going to pull them into the center here. You can already see there that we do need to do some adjustments to this. So let's go individually. I'm going to hold down X. I'm going to snap these into the center here. Let's pull those there. We know we need to go an awful lot higher up here. You can see that we want to match up there, and then this is the top of that vent. Just put something like that. Let's maybe grab all of these, because it looks like on our review maybe we'll go a little bit further with this. About there. Okay. And then we can see we've got this extra portion here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these two edges, I'm going to hit Control E, and let's pull these out to the side. I'm going to grab my target weld, and we're going to weld this point down here, and then with this point let's just straighten that off, and then with the top one, what we can do is we can pull this down to kind of mold the start of that vent, like so. And this one here, let's straighten that off. Okay, and then let's grab these two edges, we'll hit Control E, we'll just pull these all the way over. We'll just do the same with that. I'm going to grab each of these holding X, snap that over there, and then finally with this last one down here, we'll target weld that one over here. Okay, so that's looking quite nice. Managed to get quite a decent solution for that extra piece of geometry in there. Let's just curve that a little bit. So that's looking quite good. Okay. And then we've got the detail in there, but we'll maybe save that for a little bit later. Obviously, when we start to add all the vents and things, we'll think about that a little bit more. And I'll bring that off around there. So that's looking quite nice. Let's maybe just now, let's think about the floor of the car. We'll do the door maybe in the next episode. Let's do the floor first. But before we do the floor, let's do something that I always found quite helpful. I'm going to bring in a basic cylinder here. I'm just going to boost up the subdivision axis, just double that up to 40, and then I'm just going to rotate this around on the z-axis to about 90 degrees. I always find it easier when making cars to bring in the wheels. Let's just bring that up to the right size. We'll scale that down. I'll just go roughly to the right size here. And then I'm just going to grab these edges and I'm going to hit bevel on these. I'm just going to do something like 0.4 and then 4 subdivisions inside there, just so we can kind of see the car. Hit Control D, let's run this one to the back. And then we know the rear is a little bit thicker. Let's maybe just pull these up into the arches a little bit lower, and then we can kind of see what the fitment on these wheels would look a bit like. That's looking okay. So get those wheels in. Let's also build a floor. So I'm going to bring in another cylinder. Let's rotate this around here. So we don't want this to be massively detailed. I'm not too fussed about that. So I'm just going to take this up so it's a little bit larger than the main wheel arch. Something like that. And then I'm just going to delete anything that's all below the halfway point, the kind of straight edgy bit. And then I'm going to grab those there. We'll hit Control E. And we'll bring these down here. Let's get rid of these frontal faces too. Oops. Okay, and then what I'm going to do with this essentially is I'm just going to grab each of these vertices and I'm going to pull them so that they're just behind the body line. Because what we're going to be doing is we are going to be extruding the body line so it's got a little bit of thickness to it anyway, each of the individual kind of components. So I'll bring these back here. You can be as neat and as tidy with these as you want. I'll probably go through and just tidy them up a little bit in between episodes just so I'm not wasting too much time. Okay. And now with that one completed, actually before we do duplicate it, let's make a change here. I'm going to go to face. I'm going to grab all the faces here and we'll say mesh display and we'll hit reverse on there. Just so we can see the faces underneath instead. Okay, I'm going to hit Control D and we'll take this to the back. We're just going to do the same kind of idea with this. Just really want this to be tucked in again just inside the arch there. Okay, and then let's just grab the vertices here. Just going to bring them a little bit closer to the edge. Because we are going to extrude the edges of the wheel arch in here as well. eventually. Okay. And then I'm just going to grab both of these. I'm going to say mesh and combine. Let's hide everything else just now. And I'm just going to go to the edges here. Let's bridge those together. Let's grab all these ones here. I'm going to hit Control E. And holding X, we'll just snap that to the center of the grid. Okay. So we see we've got a nice floor underneath. And then what we'll do is let's go to Mesh Tools. I'm going to probably maybe add just a couple of extra lines inside here just to help me out a little bit more. Grab all of these very frontal faces, hit Control E. Let's bring these out here. Something like that. Obviously we're not going to be seeing too much of the underside of the car. Anyway, we do need to do a little bit more on the diffuser here. It does have a next further extrusion down, which we'll probably need to add at some point, so we'll need to remember to come back in and do that. So I'll take that in behind there, and then we could just do the same with the rear. And we're just going to take this up and behind the diffuser, so it's not going to be interfering with too much. Just something like that. Let's hook that up there. And I think what I'll do is let's grab these ones. I'll bring these up too. So we took those up and out of the way. And then, last thing with this is let's grab our hypershade back. And then we can throw our darker material on there, just so it's going to disappear off underneath, which looks quite good. Okay, and then what we'll do is we could just duplicate that, Control D, Control G, and flip that to the other side. Do the same with our body panels here. So I think what we could do is we're probably coming to an end with this episode. Let's get this geometry prepped here. Let's add 2 lines in, which is going to help us merge the gaps inside here. So let's drop one just here. Before we add that second one in, let's just shuffle that about a bit, make sure it's looking okay. We do need to remember that here there is that little portion at the front where it kind of kinks down but then smooths back up. So it looks like that just folds into the door. So let's go here, we'll drop that on that crease. We'll bring this down here. And then the rest I think should be fine. And we'll just check how that looks in the top. So all that's looking okay. And we're just going to drop in another edge loop to match up down here. And let's drop that just maybe where the actual crease, that's not really the start, it probably starts about there. So let's just drop this one here. And then by this point here, this is where the crease kind of stops. So let's just maybe bring that up in a way. We want that to kind of be molding nicely with the door. I think with this one we probably want this to be coming like that. Something like that. And then that'll be something like that. We'll see how that looks when smoothed a little later on. But we do just want like a little bit of a movement there, which looks like that should be fine. So it looks like we're ready then to start to think about the door. So in the next episode, what we'll maybe do is we'll do the door and then maybe make a start on the roof, and that'll be our base mesh close to being complete. So we are moving on quite well with this, quite nicely. So yeah, in the next episode we'll fill in this gap here, think about the roof, and then we're going to be chopping up all the different panels and starting to smooth them out before we start to move on the kind of accessories like the vents and the lights and all that good stuff. Alright then guys, so if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up. If you didn't, make sure you hit that thumbs down. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to keep up with the episodes, and I will see you in the next one.